So I was asked, I believe it was this morning, why, as somebody said, God, so to speak, and we should not use that name because that is the name of the Norse idol called Godin. It is not the Elohim of Israel. But why did Yehovah allow the Holocaust to happen? Now, to ask that question is overshadowing all the previous Holocausts against the Jews that had occurred for the last 2,000 years. So instead of asking why did Yehovah allow the Holocaust to happen, the question should be asked, why did he allow the Jews to be persecuted these nearly 2,000 years in multiple Holocausts? And the answer is very, very simple. And you go to Bible Hub, and I urge everyone who go and read your Bible to use the Strong's Concordance along with it, because the reason is very simple. It is because King James Version and many other versions have added their own interpretations rather than interpreting as accurately as they can. They did their own interpretations, thereby twisting meanings, words, replacing names, a whole bunch of things that they have done, which has made the person who wants to believe unable to believe because they don't have the proper translation in front of them. So I strongly urge everyone to use Strong's Concordance, because what it'll do is it will, for instance, in the beginning it's not God, it's Elohim. You see? All right. So Elohim is describes the spirit realm and also the greatest of the spirit realm, which is Yehovah. So in order to answer this question, you have to go straight to Deuteronomy 28. All right? Deuteronomy 28. Now, we have to read this in the context of this. So, after the Jerusalem was destroyed because of idolatry. So, King Nebuchadnezzar was sent to Jerusalem to destroy it and to remove the people of Judah, of Yehudah, out of there. That the lost tribes of Israel were already removed by the Assyrians years before. All right, so that will be provided in context. And then, so part of the Jews came back, only part of them, to Jerusalem to rebuild the street and the wall. They rebuilt the temple. Okay, and this was during the time of Nehemiah. So we have to go to Deuteronomy 28. Now, what you see here is the blessings of obedience. It shall come to pass, if you hearken diligently unto the voice of, what does this say? Yehovah. That is his name. His name is not the Lord. His name is not God. Unto the voice of Yehovah Elohim, to observe and do all his commandments. That I command you this day, that Yehovah Elohim will set you on high above all the nations of the earth. Okay? Above everyone. And all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you, and you shall, if you hearken unto the voice of Yehovah Elohim. And these are the blessings that you're going to have. Blessed are you going to be in the city, and blessed are you going to be out in the field, in the country. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body, the fruit of the ground, the fruit of the cattle, increase of the cattle, and the flocks of sheep. Everything will be blessed. And Yehovah will cause your enemies that rise up against you to be smitten before your face. And they shall come out against you in one way and flee before you 7 ways. All right, folks, I want you to please remember this. Please remember this, because that time did come. It did happen. Now, when we go down here to the curses of disobedience, it's the reverse. And this is exactly what happened. The curse of disobedience shall come to pass if you will not listen to the voice of Yehovah Elohim to observe and do all these commandments and the statutes which I command you this day. All these curses shall come upon you and shall overtake you. Cursed shall be you in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. So Jerusalem was cursed, and the countryside of Israel was cursed. All right? Please listen carefully. Keep some of these things, as much of this information in the back of your mind as you possibly can, because in Deuteronomy 30, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point to the Holocaust. I'm going to point to all the terrible things that have happened to the Jews in the past. And what's happening right now is different. All right? Cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your store. Cursed shall you be in the fruit of the body and the fruit of the land and the increase of the cattle and your flocks of sheep. Cursed shall be when you come in, and cursed shall you be when you go out. And Yehovah will send upon you cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that you set your hand to do, until you be destroyed, until you perish quickly. But why for so long? Why? I'll try to address that as well. Because of the wickedness of your doings, whereby you have forsaken me. Yehovah will make pestilence cleave unto you until he has consumed you from off the land and where you go to possess it. So he's going to cause, he said he's going to cause consumption and pestilence and stuff like that until the people of Israel would be forced to leave the land of Israel. That occurred. But wait, something has happened. People of Israel have come back. Not all of them, but a few of them have come back. It's not the same as it was before, is it? No. Until you perish, and the sky over your head will be brass, and the earth that is under you shall be iron. It's no longer that way. Is it because the curses are over? Well, ask yourself the question. Are these things happening to the people of Israel anymore, specifically targeting them in the land of Israel? The answer is not really. And Yehovah will cause you to be smitten before your enemies. In 1948, that's when everything started to change. When Israel had a war with the Arabs, what happened? The Arabs lost. So they weren't smitten before their enemies. It says, and you shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. And you will be removed, or you'll be scattered into all the kingdoms of the earth. That happened. But the gathering has just started around 1940s, 1948. Just tiny gatherings have come back. Now the question is, are these curses upon Israel anymore? Well, before 1948, I say yes. After 1948, I think no. You judge for yourself. What do you think? And then he goes on, and he just doesn't stop. And he's going to smite you with the botch of Egypt and with tumors, and with the scab and with the itch that cannot be healed. That tumors and skin cancer and stuff like that. He just goes on and on and on and on and on, and he doesn't stop until the end of this chapter. It says right here, I'll bring a nation against you from afar. Who was that? It was Assyria, Babylon, and then Rome. From the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand. So this is obviously Rome. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard a person of age, nor show favor to the young. And he will eat the fruit of your cattle and the fruit of your land until you be destroyed, and which he will not leave you with anything, corn, wine, or cattle, or flocks of sheep, until he has destroyed you. And he will besiege you in all your gates. That happened in 67 to 74 CE. That was Rome. It was also ancient Babylon. But we look at Rome today because that was the last time that, or that was the time when Yehoshua was warning about the abomination of desolation as spoken of by Daniel the prophet. That happened 67 to 74 CE by Vespasian, the Roman emperor, who sent the Roman prince Titus. Until your high fence walls come down. He's talking about the walls of Jerusalem, wherein you trusted in all your land, he will besiege you in all your gates. That was Titus who did this. Throughout all your land, which Yehovah has given unto you. And then you're going to eat the fruit of your own body, your own babies. Now, I don't want to continue because it takes too much time. Look at this. Look how long this horrible, horrible cursing is. So in verse 29, these are the words of the covenant that Yehovah commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab. The covenant he made to them with Horeb. All right? So they agreed to this covenant, but they broke it. Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. They broke it. This is the new covenant chapter that the Christians hate. And the reason why the Christians hate it is because it says that the new covenant is for Israel, the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah. It's a Strong's Concordance. Behold, the days come. That's future tense, obviously. Says Yehovah, that I will make a new covenant with, does it say the church? The churches say the church. That's not what it says. It says with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. Not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt. Because they broke my covenant. My covenant they broke. So the covenant was broken. And as you read in Hebrews 8, verses 8 through 12, Paul says this word for word. And he said, if they had not broken it, there would have been no need for a new covenant. Now, covenant was broken. So they signed the covenant. Now, Here's what Moses says. Moses tells them what they're going to do. Right here in start in verse 14. Neither, not only do I make this covenant with you, do I make this covenant oath, but with him that stands here unto this day before Yehovah Elohim, and also with him that is not here today. That's your children and your children's children. For you know that how we have dealt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations where you passed by. And you have seen their abominations and their idols of wood that you see in church buildings every Sunday, those same idols, of wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them. Lest there should be among you a man or a woman or a family or a tribe whose heart turns away this day, from this day when this covenant was made, from Yehovah, not from the Lord, from Yehovah Elohim, to go and serve the gods of these nations, these Goi. Lest there should be among you a root that bears gall and wormwood, and it come to pass that he hears the words of this curse, and he blesses himself in his heart. He says, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of my own heart to add drunkenness to thirst, to quench thirst with drunkenness. Yehovah will not spare him, but the anger of Yehovah and his jealousy will smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book will lie upon him, and Yehovah shall blot his name out from under heaven, and Yehovah shall separate him unto evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the law. And so that generation to come of your children shall rise up after you, and a stranger that shall come from a far land shall say, when they see the plague of this land and the sicknesses which Yehovah has laid upon it. So he's already saying the whole house of Israel is going to do this. But he's bearing witness against them. And the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt, and burning that it is not sown, nor bears any grass, grows therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim. Now, as I mentioned in Hosea 11 about Admah and Zeboim, that Yehovah says, I now change my mind. My heart is changed for Ephraim's sake, for Israel's sake, which Yehovah overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. Even all the Gentiles shall say, why did Yehovah do this to this land, and what means the heat of this great anger? Well, folks, this was the reason. And turning his back on the Jews for all these 2,000 years because they rejected Yehoshua, the Moshiach. It was known this was going to happen. And he turned his back on them, and people asked, why? Why did he allow this to happen? Right here it says that people are going to ask, all the nations are going to say, why has Yehovah done this to this land, and what means the heat of this great anger? And then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of Yehovah Elohim of their fathers, which he had made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods that they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of Yehovah was kindled against this land to bring in all the curses that are written in this book. And Yehovah rooted them out of the land in anger and in wrath and in a great indignation, and cast them into another land. Okay. The secret things belong to Yehovah Elohim, and will be revealed to our children forever, that we may know to do all the words of this Torah. So they're going to be revealed in a future generation. That's what he's saying. So now we have to go to chapter 30. And it shall come to pass, and all these terrible things, after all these things happen to you, the blessing the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you. You will call them into mind. You're going to remember when you're scattered among the nations where Yehovah Elohim has sent you. And you shall return unto Yehovah Elohim. It's not if you shall, it's you shall. Did they start returning? Yes. Is it finished? No. Because the time of the Gentiles is not, wait a minute. Because the time of the Gentiles as of 1948 had not been over. Now, technically speaking, the time of the Gentiles is not over right now because they still have dominion over the land of Israel. In other words, the United States of America, the United Nations, and all them get to say what happens in Israel. Do you get Judea and Samaria? Yes or no? Well, they keep saying no. But that's going to change. And it says, and you will obey his voice according to all that I command you this day. You and your children, you will do it with all of your heart. Then Yehovah Elohim will return your captivity and have compassion upon you and will return. He, Yehovah, is going to return and gather you from all the Gentiles where Yehovah Elohim has scattered you. Now, it's not going to be partial like it is right now. It's going to be total and complete because in Ezekiel 39 says so. And right here it even implies it. And if any of yours be driven in the outermost parts of the horizon, any of you, this is the implication that all are going to be gathered. Any of you that have Hebrew DNA in you, what I mean is either a Jew or of the other lost tribes, you have to go back. It's not going to be, how do I say this? You have to leave this place. You have to go back home. Why? So that Yehovah can fulfill the promise he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why. That's why you must go. And you will be approached. And you will be told you must go back home. When the time is right. From the utmost part of the horizon. From there, Yehovah Elohim will gather you. And from there he will fetch you. He's going to do it. There is nothing that you or I can say about it. This is not the same as people leaving Europe on their own and going to the state of Israel as they did in the after the Holocaust. That's just a beginning. But that should tell you something, that the time of the Gentiles has either, or the time, okay, so the curses upon the Jews and Israel ended when they were able to start going back home. Those cursings ended. Which means there has to be only a short period of time, however many years that might be, that the time of the Gentiles comes to an end and that the rise of Jerusalem shall commence. And Yehovah Elohim will bring you out in, will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you will possess it, and he will do you good and multiply you above your fathers. And then Yehovah Elohim will circumcise your heart. This is different. This is the new covenant, circumcising Israel's heart. So all of that comes together, bringing them back into their own land and circumcising their heart. That is the new covenant. Okay? You can't spiritualize this away. And the heart of your children to love Yehovah Elohim with all of your heart and with all of your soul so that you may live. And then Yehovah Elohim will do what? Put all these curses upon your enemies, upon them that hated you, upon them which persecuted you. So I have to ask you a question. Who persecuted the Jews these past 2,000 years? Who hated the Jews? Rome, Germany, Italy, France, Switzerland, Great Britain, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Russia. Get it? And during World War II, the ship that was carrying the 900 and some Jews fleeing Nazi Germany came to the islands asking for asylum to the United States. President Franklin Roosevelt denied them. That alone makes the United States an enemy of Israel and puts it under this curse. That act alone. And you will return and obey the voice of Yehovah and do all his commandments which I command you this day. And then he goes and okay, so he says after the blessings and the curses, once the curses are over, then it's time for the blessings of Israel to begin. I'm telling you. I am telling you. The curses stopped. The curses on Israel stopped when they began to go back to that land after the Holocaust. That's when the curses stopped. All you got to do is look over there and look. Go over there and look. And their enemies still hate them. Europe still hates them. Iran still hates them. Their enemies still hates them. Now that Joe Biden is going to be president, now he, along with the EU, are going to push for Israel to go back to the 67 borders. Now, look up the word oppress. Oppress means to squeeze. To tell Israel that they must go back to the 67 borders is squeezing them. It is oppressing them. It is persecuting them. This is going to happen. The United States is going to do this under Joe Biden. All right? Now, okay. Now I want to do an after those days search. So I'll first do the time of the Gentiles, as staying in context of what I'm talking about. So Luke 21 verse 24, it says, we'll start in verse 20, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies. So that's future tense from when Hoshea was standing there talking to the disciples. When were they compassed with armies? 67 CE. Then you know its desolation is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. What mountains? That would be the southern mountains in the Sinai Peninsula. And some of them did. And let them that are in the midst of the land depart, and let them that are in the midst of the city depart, and let them that are in the countryside, the fields, not go back to the city. Because these are the days of vengeance. What are the days of vengeance? Well, 67 to 74, but it gets worse. That all things which are written, that's in the prophets, may be fulfilled. And it starts with the words of Moses in Deuteronomy 28, 29, and 30. Specifically 28 and 29. I'll get to the 30 right here in just a second. Woe to them that are with child, and to them which give suck in those days, and there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon his people. Exactly what Moses said. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and they will be led away captive into all the Gentiles, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles. Does it say just for 3.5 years? Well, it says that in other scripture, but you got to understand, we're talking translating from Hebrew to Greek to English here. So right here it says, and Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, like I said, you got to go use Strong's Concordance and make sure you got your so the time of the Gentiles, and what ethnos, it means exactly what it says. Gentiles, non-Jews, all right? Be fulfilled or complete. So what it means is that the time of the Gentiles is a finite period of time. How do we find this finite period of time? It's time to go to Daniel 9. Now remember, right here, before we go to Daniel 9, I just want to point out that when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, it says, it points this out right here in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 to 34. It says, behold, the days come. That's after the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. All right? So now I need to go right straight back to Luke again. Now I'm almost... The reason why I say I got to go back to Luke again. Now the promise of bringing all Israel still must be fulfilled. I mean by a miracle. Not by people walking there on their own. It has to be by a miracle. The words of the prophets must be fulfilled. So once the time of the Gentiles has ended, then there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and the stars and upon the earth. Sunoke of the what? Gentiles. 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 Sunoke of the Gentiles. Sunoke or suneko means seizing. In other words, they are frozen in place. See? A holding together distress. Something held together in close, hard tension. So what it means is hard tension, close together in proximity, and unable to move, to feel locked in, tightly pressed. Now when you dig a little deeper, as I keep saying over and over again, these afflicted with sickness. It sounds like quarantine from sickness. We shall see. With perplexity and the sea and the waves roaring. This would be a tsunami. So this hasn't happened yet. The signs in the sun and the moon and the stars hasn't happened yet, but we do see distress upon the nations. We do see Sunoke and Suneko on the nations. Now it's going to be much worse than that, than what we see now. Then it says, men's hearts shall failing them for fear for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the power of heaven will be shaken. That means meteors falling from the sky and all that kind of thing. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with great glory. And when these things shall come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. Well, who is he speaking to? Well, after the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled, then the time of Israel must commence. So we read here in the cross-reference here, it says right here, see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of heaven with power and great glory. And then he will send the messengers. Messengers. with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect. Isaiah 46, is it 40? Now I can't remember, what is it? 46 verse 4. Israel, my elect. Romans 11 verses 27, 28. Paul says to the Romans that the people of Israel might be enemies for your sake, but for they are the elect for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's sake. So he will gather his elect, which is Israel, from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. We just read in Deuteronomy 30, he's going to gather them from the farthest end of the sky. That's the horizon, right? Right. Now, just to prove my point, just to leave no stone unturned, is it 46 or 45 verse 6? See, I can't, oh, I'm messing up here. Let me just type it in. I think it's this chapter. Verse 4. Read this with me. Say it in your heart. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, my elect. I have called you by your name. I have surnamed you, though you have not known me. He's going to gather his elect, even though they have not known him. So, and I know this is not the narrative that your preacher teaches. Well, your preacher is wrong. And I have to tell you right now, if I am the only one on this earth who is teaching this on YouTube online, and if everybody else, all the paid preachers, are teaching something different, I am telling you right now, they are all wrong. Because I am proving it right here in front of you right now. All you've got to do is read and listen. So he's going to gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other, just like what you read here in Deuteronomy 30. He says, Yehovah will again return your captivity and have compassion upon you. Who? Israel. Who's he speaking to here? Israel. And he will gather you from all the Gentiles. What is this saying? Gather the elect from the four winds, where Yehovah Elohim has scattered you. And if any of you be driven into the utmost parts of the sky. Let's read it again. There's no way of getting around this. And he's going to gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky unto the other. It is impossible to mistake this for something else other than what is written in Deuteronomy 30. And verse 4. It's impossible. It is the same speech. It is essentially the same scripture. You cannot therefore say, well, we don't listen to the Old Testament anymore. We only do the New Testament. Well, guess what? What is written in Matthew is written in Deuteronomy. It's unescapable. So, now the question is, how do you know when the time of the Gentiles has come to an end? Well, one way is when the curses stop. The fact that some Jews are already back in the Holy Land and Israel has become a state again. Remember, Israel has not been a state since the destruction of Jerusalem by Rome. Do we not all agree on this? Something has changed. For nearly 2,000 years, Israel has not become a state. Once Israel became a state, the curses were lifted, but the time of the Gentiles has not ended yet. So once again, how do you find out? Well, the way you look it up is in Daniel 9. I'm just going to type it in because I can't find it that way. So this was after the first destruction of Jerusalem, where Daniel he knew that the 70th year has ended, and he prayed to Yehovah to remember that that curse that lasted for 70 years was to end, and that all Israel must be brought back, or not all Israel, but the Jews must be brought back. All right, see, so he says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years which the word of who? Yehovah, not the Lord, came to Jeremiah the prophet, and he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. All right? So the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonian king was 70 years. So he says he prayed to Yehovah Elohim and made my confession and said, Adonai, the great and dreadful El, keeping the covenant and mercy unto them that love him and them that keep his commandments. We have sinned and we have committed iniquity. We have done wickedly and rebelled by departing from your precepts and from your judgments. Neither have we listened to your servants the prophets. And of course, now the Christians don't want to listen to the prophets either, calling it the Old Testament. No, they don't want to listen to the words of Jeremiah, who talked about a new covenant coming for the house of Israel and house of Judah. They don't want to listen to that. All right? Neither have we listened to your servants the prophets, which spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, our fathers, and to all the people of this land. Adonai, righteousness belongs. Oh, Adonai is righteous, but to us we are ashamed. We are shamefaced, confusion of face. Today, to the men of Yehudah, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near, and to all that are far off, through all the countries where you have driven them, because of their trespass which they have trespassed against you. Yehovah, or Adonai, belongs to us, confusion of face, to our kings, our princes, our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To Adonai, Elohim, belong mercies and forgiveness. So he's reminding that it's time to forgive, even though we rebelled against him. We have not obeyed the voice of Yehovah Elohim to walk in his law, in his Torah that he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yes, all Israel has transgressed your Torah by departing, and that they might not obey the voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us. Okay, so he's saying that the curse is poured upon us. But see, now we go scroll down here, and Gabriel comes. But what does Gabriel say? He says it's not over, but to get a reprieve. While I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before Yehovah Elohim, for the holy mountain of my Elohim, that would be Jerusalem. While I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, or the messenger Gabriel, that I saw in the vision at the beginning, when I was weary and faint. See, they say, because to fly swiftly. That's not what it says. When he was weary and faint. You see? You see how King James Version does to you? They try to trick you. Try to make you think things that are not there. That's the reason why you have to read through this carefully. Touched me about the time of the evening oblation, and he informed me and spoke with me, and saying, Daniel, I am now come to give you skill and understanding. At the beginning of your supplication, the commandment came forth, and I am come to show you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 77s are determined upon the holy city. 77s. And then he goes on to describe how the 77s are added up. From what point to what point? To finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring an everlasting. In other words, no more rejection of Israel. So this is talking about to bring in the new covenant for Israel. Everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision of the prophecy, and to anoint the Kodesh. Kodesh. Now the Jews know what the Kodesh means, and many Christians and the Gentiles do not. The Kodesh is the holy place, near or where the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, sits today. So you see, the time of the Gentiles is not yet come to an end, although the cursings upon the Jews and Israel have come to an end. But the time of the Gentiles and the time to administer the new covenant to Israel has not occurred yet. Know therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. That's 49 years. Now, that's interesting. The Christians, they say plus 62 weeks, and the street and the wall shall be built again. No, those are two separate incidences. Read it carefully. What he's saying is, at the time of the very end, this is what you're going to be looking for at the time of the very, very end, when Messiah the Prince comes. The second time. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Now concerning, it doesn't say and 62 weeks, it just says 60. So there is your allotment for 7 weeks. It is the time of the call to rebuild Jerusalem, okay, unto Messiah the Prince, when he's already received his kingdom. Yes, when the prince has received the authority to receive his kingdom. That's the prince. The suffering servant has not received the kingdom yet. So he says, 62 weeks, the street shall be built again, and the wall in troublous times. That was the time of Nehemiah the prophet. And it was exactly 434 years, which is 67. So what is it? 62, I'm sorry. 62 times 7 is 434. So from 0 on the Roman calendar, you count back 434 BCE, and that was when Nehemiah finished rebuilding the street and the wall. It's just that simple. It's really not hard to comprehend. It really is simple math, folks. So that calculation was out of the way. So that 62 weeks, when Messiah, from the time that they rebuilt the street and the wall, if you read the book of Nehemiah, you'll plainly see that it was his job to rebuild the street and the wall. So after 62 weeks, or 434 years, shall Messiah be cut off. So 434 BCE, Nehemiah was finished building the street and the wall. And Messiah, the suffering servant, was cut off. He couldn't be a prince until he was cut off. He could not qualify to be a prince until he was cut off. So this time, the 7 sevens, or 49 years, the call to rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince shall be 7 sevens has not occurred yet. He had to go to, as they say, a far country to receive himself a kingdom and then come back. Come on, folks. A young nobleman. Like a young nobleman going to receive himself a kingdom. I might need to go there. Young nobleman. I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can possibly do. Like a nobleman to receive himself a kingdom. Luke 19, verse 12. All right. Let's go Strong's Concordance. Sorry about that. Now, I want to point something out real quickly. Well, see right here, it says, "And Jesus entered." It doesn't say Jesus, does it? See, it went to enter and pass through Jericho. But anyway, I'm completely missing my point here. I need to get right straight to it. Oh my, what have I done? Oh, young nobleman. This, parable of the 10 minas. All right, it's verse 12. And he said, therefore, a certain nobleman. Well, this says a certain man. Doesn't even say nobleman. Went into a far country to receive him for himself a kingdom and to return. Hello? Who is the one who's come to receive, goes to receive a kingdom and return? Well, when he returns, he is royalty. He is now a prince or a king. But he was just like, not a nobleman, but just a man. The suffering servant. You see, folks? So this is a parable of, it's a parable. He likened himself to a man who went into a far long distant country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. Now right here it says sovereignty and royal power. Well, a prince has sovereignty and royal power. If you don't believe it, just go to Saudi Arabia and ask who's in charge. His title is, are you ready? Prince. Now we have context in Daniel 9. A prince, the royalty, he had to go to a far country to receive himself sovereignty. A prince has sovereignty. A man, a regular man, does not. And the one who was cut off, even though he's Messiah, the anointed one, he is still cut off. just as is written in Isaiah about the suffering servant. But but it says, for the people. Now it says, but the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city, which was not long afterwards. Barely a generation afterwards. They shall come to destroy the city and the sanctuary, the end thereof shall be with a flood. Unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Now this is you Christians, you deliberately, because you've read Cyril and his catechetical lecture, 15th catechetical lecture, and got it all wrong, you twisted this. That was Titus that made a covenant with his generals not to burn the temple, because you don't read history, that's your problem. Because he wanted to bring the temple and all the things that were in it, piece by piece, to Rome, to add it to the pantheon in Rome. That's what he wanted to do, as a trophy. But if you read your history, you will find that Titus lost control of his men because the siege against the Jews did not go quite as planned. The Jews were very vicious against the Romans in the Roman siege against Jerusalem. And it got to the point where Titus could not control his armies anymore. He lost control of them, and they burned the temple down and burned the city. The daily sacrifices were caused to cease on the Roman calendar, July 14th, 70 CE. August the 10th, 70 CE, the temple was burning. And on September the 8th, the city was destroyed, but they didn't have enough. They continued to rape, pillage, and murder until Masada was taken in 74. Completing the 7 years, or the 1 week that is written right here. It says, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. 7 years. It's a period of 7. 7 days, years, heptad. That's what it says. So it's years. And in the midst of the week, he will cause a sacrifice and oblation to cease. It was early 67 when the war started. The sacrifices and oblation were caused to cease on July 14th, 70 CE. I know the dates. Why don't you? You paid preachers. I'm not paid for this. And I don't ask anybody any money for this. I do this because it is an obligation of mine for 2 reasons. If anybody wants to listen, they can hear and believe. They don't even have to tell me they believe. That is between you and your Creator. And if you don't listen, then this YouTube video is going to be a testimony against you for not listening, for not believing. Whose fault will it be? Not mine. So, but see, the covenant was to besiege the city. The covenant between Titus and his men was to besiege the city for 7 years, and by that time they will have starved the people out, and it would have been easy pickings. But that's not how it worked out, you see. So the 7 years is over. The 62 sevens, which is 434 years, is over, and the only thing that was left was the very first Math equation. 7 sevens. Was there a day when there was a call to rebuild Jerusalem? Yes, there was. I have it documented. Here it is. It's in my bookmarks. All I've got to do is find it. And I hope I can. Oh boy. I have put too many things on here. Oh my. All right, I will have to Google it. Okay. I sure hope I can find it. Because I have to find it one way or the other. Jewish Virtual Library, I think I have it. There it is, right there. I found it. Now, Six-Day War, the liberation of the Temple Mount and Western Wall, June 7, 1967. All right. Scroll down to the bottom. And at the very end, the soldiers are weeping. Rabbi Goren sounds a shofar, sounds of gunfire in the background. He's general, main general. And this is what he said in Hebrew. Leshana hazat beYerushalayim ha-nuya beYerushalayim ha-atika. Translation. This year in a rebuilt Jerusalem as in the Jerusalem of old. What this means is, beginning with this year, we rebuild Jerusalem as in the Jerusalem of old. That's how you translate it properly in English. Beginning with this year, in a rebuilt Jerusalem, as in the Jerusalem of old. So it begins this year. That's when you start counting. The summer of 1967, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017. Minus 1 year is 2016. Who got elected in 2016? Just a few short months afterwards. It was Donald Trump. What did President Donald Trump do? Peace plan of the century. How is the time of the Gentiles going to come to an end? You find out in Haggai . You find out in Haggai 2 how it's going to come to an end and the date. And then I'm going to show you the sign that it's going to come to an end. This is talking about the rebuilding of the temple. Not the rebuilding of Jerusalem, just the rebuilding of the temple. All right? And again, the word of Yehovah came to Haggai in the 24th day of the month. 24th day of what month? Well, if you read earlier here, it says in the 24th day of the 9th month. All right? So the 9th month would be 24th day of the 9th month is Hanukkah. The word of Yehovah came unto Haggai in the 24th day of the month, the 9th month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Yehuda, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles. That's when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. You see right here, he says, here, all right. He's reminding them, it says, there's a time will pass when I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all the nations, all the Gentiles, and the wealth of all the Gentiles is going to come, and I will fill this house with glory, says Yehovah of hosts, because all the silver is mine and all the gold is mine, says Yehovah of hosts. Guess what's going to happen? All that stolen gold they stole from the Jews, it's coming back. Okay, so we go back down. So he says, in the 24th day, the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of Yehovah by Haggai, the prophet, saying, okay, so it keeps on talking about that day, and then he says right here, remember that day. So consider now this day and forward. Don't forget this day. Consider, it says, put into place, set this place, today and forward from the 24th day of the 9th month, even the day that the foundation of Yehovah's temple was first laid. Remember it. Set it. Why? Because that is the day when it all breaks down. That is the day. Now, I want you to go to your calendar, look at Hanukkah, and ask yourself, especially in the coming weeks, if it does break down, when did it all start? Did it begin on Hanukkah? I'll let you answer that question. Let you and your conscience figure that one out. I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of the kingdoms. I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles. I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the Sus. What is the Sus? Well, in Old Hebrew, it was a bird. Now, these are war birds. War birds. Only in later Hebrew is it talking about chariot horses. So it can be both chariot horses and war birds. Well, today we have war birds. So let the definition apply to what it applies to. Will all come down, and their riders will all come down, every one by the sword of his brother. Civil unrest. Why? Then it says, in that day, so that the Yehovah of hosts will I take you, Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel means born in Babylon, begotten in Babylon. And I will, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, says Yehovah, and I will make you as a sign. Come out of Babylon, is what he means by that sign. Okay? Now, so we go, so now that we have seen how the time of the Gentiles is going to end, now Paul gave us a sign. Here's what he said, here's where it is. Okay? When they shall say peace and safety. Oh. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 3. What's been happening over there? President Donald Trump, the one who was elected, when the time of the Gentiles was scheduled to come to an end. Immediately began talking peace plan of the century. All you have to do is Google it. I don't have to show it to you. Immediately. It was immediately, folks. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, I have no need to write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly well that the day of Yehovah, now it's the day of Yehovah's wrath upon the Gentiles, shall so come as a thief in the night. For when they are saying peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. All right? That is the sign. Now we go back to Daniel 12. Go back to Daniel 12. And at that time, what time? When the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. You know how I know this? If we keep reading it, we'll find out. But you can't read it in King James Version. Nope. You have to use Strong's Concordance from direct Hebrew. That time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, chieftain, which stands for the children of your people. Now, who is Daniel's people? Israel. And there shall be a time of trouble such as there never was since there was... No, that's not what it says. Wrong. Let's read it again. It shall come to pass at a time of adversary, extreme difficulty, terrible, terrible times. Here's what it says. Straits, distress. We just read in Luke 21, verse 25, distress upon the Gentiles, it says. Now look what it says right here. There shall be a time of distress on the goey. You see that? That's the next word, on the goey. On the goey, that's the Gentiles. That's exactly what it says. That's exactly what it says in Luke. Now, if I can find it, is it right here? No, but I can go there. That's no problem. Luke 21. There shall be signs in the sun, and the signs in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress upon the Gentiles. Daniel, it's the same wording, folks. Distress on the Gentiles. See. A time of sorrow, which means distress, distress on the goey, the Gentiles. And at that time, your people, Daniel's people, shall be delivered. And it says, will find written in the book. So people will say, wait a minute, that's not every one of them. Watch this. Be found written in the book. Okay, all right. Ezekiel 39. Strong's Concordance. Verse 22. starting verse 22. We'll start in verse 21. And I will set my glory among the Gentiles, and all the Gentiles shall see the judgment that I have executed in my hand that I have laid upon them. That's the time of the Gentiles coming to an end. That is, day of Yehovah's wrath upon the Gentiles. Just exactly what it says in Daniel 12. And so that the house of Israel shall know, not that I am Yehovah, but shall know Yehovah. Elohim, from that day, beginning with that day and forward. It's not he's going to save them if they, as they say, repent. No, they're going to believe from that day and forward. Do not put words in his mouth. You say it exactly as he say it. From that day and forward. That they're going to know Yehovah Elohim from that day and forward. And here's the answer to the question. How did he let them suffer through the Holocaust? How? How could this have happened? Why did he turn his back on them? Here's the answer. And the Gentiles shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they trespassed against me. For that reason I hid my face from them, and gave them into the hand of their enemies, and so they fell by the sword. That's the reason. Something's going to happen. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions have I done unto them, and hid my face from them. So he hid. So when they were butchering women and children and throwing them into pits, throwing them into the ovens, he had his back turned towards them. He did not listen to their screams of agony. No, because the time of Jacob's trouble had not yet come to an end yet. The 77s had not been fulfilled yet. In fact, so here's what I'm saying. Now, therefore, thus saith Yehovah, now I will return the captives of Jacob and have mercy on them. So after the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, and I'm telling you it has, it came to an end on the Roman year 2016, a few months before Donald Trump took office. He was sent there to do one thing, that is to proclaim peace and safety, the peace plan of the century. And Paul said, as soon as they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them, and they shall, as a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. So who's going to escape then? Listen, let's keep going and we'll find out. Now I will bring all the captivity of Jacob and have mercy upon the whole house, not part, not except a few, of Israel. The whole house of Israel. Read Romans 11, verse 26 carefully. What does it say? And so all Israel shall be saved, and will be jealous for my holy name, but only after they have borne their shame. After the Holocaust. And all their trespasses by which they trespassed against me, when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid. When I brought them, no, I will return from the people and gather them out of their enemies' lands, and am sanctified them in the sight of many Gentiles. Then they will know Yehovah Elohim, which caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen, among the Gentiles, but I have gathered them into their own land, and I will leave none of them anymore. There will be none left. Zero. So if you have Jewish or lost Israel blood in you, you will be taken back to that land. No questions. Neither will I hide my face any more from them, because I will pour out my Raush, my spirit, upon, does it say the church? It says, upon the house of Israel, says Yehovah Elohim. Or it says, Adonai Yehovah. All right? Now you have the answer why he turned his back on the Jews during the Holocaust. But now it's time for revenge. Because we just read Deuteronomy 30. Revenge. Verse 7, and Yehovah Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies, on them that hate you, which persecuted you. Revenge. We know when it's going to happen. When they shall say peace and safety. Well, they did. And it was happening all 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency. I have many videos in my YouTube channel that I talked about this, that I warned that this was a trap for the Gentiles. I warned over and over and over again. You can go look through my videos and you can see them. Fact? Well, no, I'm not. I'll look through my videos. You'll see them. Just go to YouTube and type Peace Plan of the Century, and you're going to find my my videos. But I don't want to talk too much here. It's already been an hour and 22 minutes. I think I've said enough. I think I've answered the question.